Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Muhammad Ahmad. I'm from Institut Agama Islam Darul Dawah Irsyad, Sedentan Lapang, South Sulawesi. Kita telah memasuki pertemuan ke-15 ya. 15 Program Summer School yang diinisiasi oleh Profesor Dr. Ismail Suarliweke PhD dan Satya dari Sekolah Tinggi Ilmu Administrasi Abdul Haris Makassar dan kandidat PhD Bapak atau Daeng Saleh Muda dari Pro the Leader yang saat ini sedang menempuh studi doktoral in Harvard University. Bapak Ibu, malam ini ada 3 narasumber yang akan memaparkan materinya mengenai Islam in Contemporary World. Yang sebelumnya saya persilahkan terlebih dahulu, saya akan memperkenalkan moderator kita, narasumber kita pada pertemuan ini. Pertama, Profesor Dr. Muhammad Tajuddin Muhammad Rusdi dari UCSI University Malaysia. Beliau merupakan Profesor of Islamic Architecture, bidang kajian arsitektur khusus pada arsitektur Islam, arsitektur masjid, juga housing and community. Kemudian narasumber kedua kita yaitu Bapak Profesor Dr. Nangkula Utaberta, juga dari UCSI University Malaysia, merupakan Profesor of Islamic Architecture, bidang kajian arsitektur. Kemudian pemateri kita yang ketiga yaitu Dr. Abdul Misna, SHI SMA, Direktur Program Pasca Sarjana, Sahid Islamic University Bogor, ahli di bidang hukum Islam dan ekonomi Islam. Bapak Ibu, kita akan mendengarkan pemaparan materi dari 3 narasumber. Sebelum kita lanjut, saya informasikan bahwa masing-masing narasumber tadi memiliki waktu 15-20 menit untuk speech. Selanjutnya kita akan masuk kepada sesi diskusi. Untuk mengefisienkan waktu, saya persilakan kepada pembicara pertama, Profesor Dr. Muhammad Tajuddin Muhammad Rusdi, untuk memaparkan materi selama 20 menit. Time is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Can I share the screen? Can you let me share the screen?
Yes, Bob. Let me read it.
Yes, can you see?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. First of all, thank you for inviting me to give this speech. I will be talking about challenges in nurturing Madani Islam in the world, rethinking university education. So I will be talking about what I understand to be civilizing Islam, as well as how we need to meet the challenges about its implementation as well as its nurturing. Now, the main issue that I am taking is particularly in the case study of Malaysia after the general election 15, as well as the recently completed state elections. We are faced with a very serious problem in this country, of which I have mentioned that the Islamic reform in the 1980s has now come full circle. Number one, with Anwar Ibrahim becoming the prime minister. But unfortunately, his colleagues, like Hadi Awan, has taken on a different way of Islam, which is threatening the idea of the original intention of Islamic reform as envisioned by many of the modern reformists. Of course, we know there are many types of Islamic reform in its early days. but mostly something which is more civilizing rather than what is known as populist. So the Islamic reform now has given birth to populist Islam that is turning to be extremist and radical. I think perhaps in Indonesia they might be having the same problem. The Islamic State philosophy, which is using military way of taking over countries and nations, has made its way into populist politics, but not using weapons, but using democracy to reign supreme. Now, even though certain political parties like PAS is not linked to Islamic State, there's no proof of that, but the philosophy of making other people enemies is something which is right in line with that. Now, the world now is divided into Islam against others. Now, the main message that I want to impart in this talk is that Madani or civilizing Islam needs a new paradigm of university education. I've always said that a lot of the political issues faced by any country, particularly that of Malaysia, is a product of education and particularly that of university. But my view has always been ignored because people always look at politician as the cause of political problem. But I always said that politician cannot say anything, cannot control anything unless there is a strong support base for it. And the support base of voters as well as people or citizens are actually coming directly from education, and sadly, much of it is from university education. So my message then is that education must move away from industry-centric to SDG 17-centric. Education must equip graduates with important values of civilization and human development, of which I have not found any aspect of it when I interview lecturers to become associate professors or assistant professors who are engineering graduates and PhD holders. Education must rewrite lessons of history of humanity away from religious and ideological wars and conflicts. Unfortunately, in our university education, nobody talks about the lives of history. History is simply a narrative, and we need to understand what is the so-called events that actually happen, but what is the interpretation and what is a narrative and what is the purpose of narrative. This has never been taught because we are always taught, number one, to memorize events and to memorize an interpretation by some sort of scholar, and we hold that to be true. So if they say that Christians and Muslims were at war over Jerusalem, this is a religious war, then we accept. This is not correct. Education must inculcate a new sense of social and moral code using the media. We have the problem which not many people are looking at with regard to the way that social media is being used and abused. Now, what is Madani Islam? In a summary, can be said to be, number one, it is the sharing of values across faith. Now, in thousands of sermons that I've read in Malaysia, there is no element of sharing of faith within that text of the sermon, in which other religions are not discussed at all. And so, generations of Muslims have been brought up totally in ignorance of other faiths. And this creates a very easy way to make enemies of one another. Interconnectedness of historical narratives in all faiths, that Islam is related to Christianity, is related to Judaism, and also related to other faiths of humanity is again never taught in our education structure, whether in religious knowledge or in the general knowledge. Human compassion of ihsan over identity and tribal constructs. What is taught in religion is simply a prescription of identity. How you pray, how you wear the tudung, how you tutup aurat, all these things are instructions, prescriptive, which relates to a form of what is known as identity that has no depth in terms of intellectual or in terms of spiritual content. Madani is moving away from religion of judgment on others. When we learn from ustaz, the ustaz always judge. Orang ini masuk neraka, orang ini tak baik, orang itu jahat, orang itu this kind of thing. They make judgment in order to teach. This is not a correct methodology, but that is the common methodology. The concept of ukhuwah wataniyah, or brotherhood of citizenship, and ukhuwah insaniyah, or brotherhood of humanity, is to strengthen ukhuwah diniyah, statement by Siddiq Fadzil, one of the scholars who recently passed away, and his view is one of those that I hold very dearly. And I also believe that SDG 17 as the new spirituality, and we read the idea of Madani, it has a very close relationship to that. Now, the Quranic verses on true is what I consider as true Islamic politics. Sorry about the spelling just now. Completed the presentation just this morning. So there are two verses that I use whenever to talk about Islamic politics. Usually before I talk about Islamic architecture, I will have to talk about what it means in humanity. And so we see that number one is the Al-Hujurat, O humanity, indeed we created you from male and female and made you into peoples, tribes, so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous among you. Allah is truly all-knowing, all-aware. So here is talking about differences. How do we deal with differences? I've always said that differences is what makes the world go round. If you have a man and a man, you cannot procreate. Same thing if you have a woman and a woman. If you have hydrogen and hydrogen, it doesn't do anything except for, well, other chemical reaction. But if you have hydrogen and oxygen, you can form water, which is something very essential. So we are not taught about differences. We are taught about how to be with our own self. The other Quranic verse is Surah Al-Baqarah 177. Righteousness does not consist in turning your faces toward the east or towards the west. Righteousness consists in believing in Allah and the last day, the angels, the book, and the prophets. So when it says to believe the book and the prophet, the kitabs, means there is the connectedness to the past faith. Islam is not a standalone religion. It is a family of religion. And giving away property in love of him to one's kinsman, the orphans, the poor, and the wayfarer, and those who ask for help. I've always said that Islamic politics is about how to pool our resources in order to help this. What happens in Muslim society? Muslim society mostly are very rich. In Malaysia, what they do is they go for Umrah several times and Hajj several times without considering this ayat. When they consider this ayat, they would either say, oh, I only donate to Muslims. Oh, I think it is the government's work. No, it is your work. And no, you have to help everyone, not just Muslim, because it doesn't say that. So these are the two important aspects of politics. But what we have at the moment is Islamic politics of making enemies of others, of making penghinaan or derogatory remarks of others, of lying against others, of corruption and accepting corruption for the sake of making Islam the power or political power. So this hadith, or what is true politics in these verses that I understand, is totally ignored. Let's look at the statement by Siddiq Fadzil. On differences, perbezaan tidak bererti permusuhan, tetapi kekuatan dan kekayaan budaya. Kata kunci dalam memahami tujuan penciptaan kepelbagaian ialah lafaz lita'arafu dalam surah Al-Hujurat, yang biasa diterjemahkan sebagai untuk saling kenal mengenal, tetapi tentu saja tidak sebatas saling mengenal. Ta'aruf pasti ada kelanjutannya, saling bekerja sama, saling memanfaatkan, saling memperkaya, saling memperkasa, dan seterusnya. Here, the idea of working with the DAP, the Democratic Action Party, that has both Muslim and non-Muslim, is seen to be working with non-Muslim. The idea of working with non-Muslim is not acceptable. So differences must not mean being enemies, but strengthen us. This is the message of the statement. Perkongsian kuasa dalam fikih politik yang realistik harus dapat menerima hakikat perlunya perkongsian kuasa Muslim dan bukan Muslim demi maslahah hidup bersama. Untuk itu, prinsip keadilan dan kewajaran harus menjadi asas perkongsian kuasa dengan mengambil kira keseimbangan proporsinya dan keserasiannya dengan kenyataan kesejarahan dan kebudayaan negara ini. So political fiqh demands that we share power, but within a wisdom of history, culture, and proportionate mandate. These are aspects of which power sharing is part of democracy, and so it can also be seen here as part of Islamic politics. With regards to citizenry, it says merajuk damai dalam kepelbagaian memang memerlukan tahap toleransi yang tinggi. Untuk itu, istilah tertentu dalam sejarah politik silam yang kini sudah tidak relevan dan tidak dapat diterima, seperti istilah kafir harbi dan kafir zimmi, seharusnya digantikan dengan istilah lain yang dapat diterima dan lebih menepati realiti hari ini. Sesuai dengan semangat kebersamaan, istilah yang realistik ialah al-muwadnun atau warga negara. So here is saying that the use of traditional terms like kafir harbi or zimmi must be disallowed, so that we replace it with citizenry. Now, it's very surprising to find that in modern societies that you have people still considering other citizens as kafir harbi. At one time in Malaysia, when a mufti said that those who are against the RUU or Undang-Undang 355 can be considered kafir harbi. So there were forums about how to kill Malaysian citizens if they deny the passage of RUU 355. So apparently there's a forum of that. So it shows that the framework of learning or education has not evolved into a construct of modern society, and this is the weakness of the madrasah, not only the madrasah, the school curriculum, as well as university curriculum teaching graduates of universities. Even though I do not have any research in looking at the curriculum of Malaysian public universities teaching graduates of religious studies, but I can see this product in terms of the silence whenever issues of modernity comes up in terms of politics and nobody says anything, or there is strong support for the antagonistic stand. Agama khususnya Islam harus berfungsi dan berperanan membangun budaya damai dan seterusnya menjayakan agenda pembinaan bangsa. Sikap menghargai perbezaan dan kepelbagaian harus dipupuk berasaskan kefahaman terhadap sunnah penciptaan dan hikmah di balik ayat-ayat Tuhan. Sementara itu, nilai persaudaraan perlu difahami dan diamalkan dalam arti yang luas, tidak terbatas hanya dalam lingkaran persaudaraan seagama atau ukhuwah diniyah, tetapi meliputi persaudaraan setanah air, ukhuwah wataniyah, dan seterusnya persaudaraan kemanusiaan, ukhuwah insaniyah. Kebanyakan orang-orang Melayu di Malaysia hanya ukhuwah diniyah, dan itu pun tengok parti politik mana. Ya, jadi di sini kita we can see that what I call the tumpurung effect, the coconut shell effect of not only religious education but also education in general. So this is what I understand from reading comments about what I call radicalized populist Islam. So populist Islam is something that is very popular, but it has been radicalized into something which will lead to dangerous extremism. So one narrative is that in order to prosper, Muslims must unite against others. Everyone is an enemy. So this is the narration that won the Perikatan Nasional many votes. Some say 75% of the Muslim votes. Others are enemies or zimmi. This is said by Hadi Awan himself in several occasions, that they can only work with non-Muslim if these non-Muslims are friendly in the sense that they don't talk too much. Okay. Muslims must be independent of others, meaning that we should not be depending on others for whatever economic and social or political reason. We must totally be independent. Liberal and creative thoughts are satanic and destructive. So thoughts like my thoughts on the mosque or even on the society and even on education of Islam, if it's not coming from some sort of authoritative figure like some sort of Tok Guru is considered satanic. Islam must be the dominating political force at whatever cost. And I have seen, and I am still alive when I hear Islamic reformists like Hadi Awan supporting corruption, and saying that corruption is not stealing money, therefore it has no room in the RUU 355 or the law of cutting off the hands. Corruption, murder, lies, dehumanizing others are necessary to a perpetual jihad. So it's okay to lie, it's okay to murder, it's okay to call others names. Why? Because in order to make sure Muslims win at the end of the day. Only Muslims following instructional Islam of ritual, pilgrimage, and jihad will enter Jannah. The education of Muslims in general are mostly about rituals, pilgrimage, and jihad, meaning protection of Islam. Nothing more. Others are not considered important, and therefore there is difficulty in having any discourse whatsoever. So here is an example of how Hadi Awan claims non-Muslims make up the roots of corruption. He says that Muslims are the ones who are easily corrupted, when in fact in Malaysia, most of the Muslims are the ones being taken into custody and investigated for corruption. The biggest party, UMNO, now has the president of UMNO and the former Prime Minister of Malaysia in Kajang jail, where I actually live in the city. So here, when he says this, he was not challenged by any mufti, not challenged by any professors, not challenged by anybody. And so this is a big problem. Next, we see also Hadi Awan saying that non-Muslims are like brainless animals without any sense of morality. Now, there are some Muslims who justify Hadi saying that in the Quran, Allah also says something about human beings. I said that is Allah. Are we trying to say that we are at the same level as Allah? Or can you actually call your friends lembu, cow, or even your children, you are just like a cow or something like that when you are angry? Hadi Awan is always saying that it's better for us to make friends with lembu UMNO rather than make friends with babi DAP. How can you have a person saying that and there's nobody saying something against such a person? What kind of morality are we looking at? Are Muslims allowed to say such things to other people in this manner simply because we are Muslims? So some people may think that this is not important. If you can dehumanize a person like that, you can simply eliminate or kill anybody just without any thoughts. So I feel that we need to rethink university on how we produce the graduates. And so I would like to have and suggest that the graduates that we produce into the future, unfortunately now what is talked about is about how do you handle ChatGPT, how do you handle online learning, all kinds of, for me, very, very, very insignificant manner of talking about university education. I would like to have graduates who understand the importance of shared values among humanity. When I ask academics who have PhD, what have you learned from another community or another faith other than your own faith? No one can answer any of my questions relating to that. Graduates who understand clearly the lies of history and nurture a cooperative or complementary historical narrative. Our problem in life is mostly about history because we don't understand what history is. Okay, so we only tend to just take whether it's Islamic history or it's Malay history or is it Malaysia's history or any history whatsoever. We do not know how to deal with it. We are just downloading things, and if it fits our identity against others, that is fine. Graduates who understand that economic survivability depends on networking across race and faith. You cannot look at yourself as being independent. I always say that one of the ways that we think that we are human and that God is God, it's not that God created all the trees and the mountain, that we need each other. If we don't need each other and we stand alone, then we are also like God. Now, I would like to, a few more. Graduates who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. And you can hear this from any motivational speeches, that the key to surviving in the future is about learning, unlearning, and relearning. Graduates who are responsible morally, ethically, and constructive using social media, and graduate with high emotional intelligence and moral integrity, as well as political diplomacy, meaning being able to communicate, rather than simply getting 4.0 with cognitive intelligence only, which can be easily replaced by artificial intelligence. So my final two slides is that we need to change the curriculum of the university to what I call 50-30-20. 50% for the specialization, architecture or engineering or what, 30% on holistic subject, meaning subject that will make the person whole. And 20% is on professional engagement and community engagement, meaning 10% for community engagement and 10% for professional engagement. Now there's only professional engagement. So we can see here 30% subjects of culture, history, and all that. 10% internship with professionals and 10% engagement with NGOs or state governments or the Wakil Rakyat office. We should also have a global hybrid curriculum where we can actually learn a few subjects required to graduate from another university, so that we don't say that we are just Malays or Muslim. Finally, in conclusion, the Islamic reform has unleashed two genies in the bottle, one that creates a new world and one that will destroy the world. University education for academics and graduates are key to reinventing mindsets on populist Islam by producing well-rounded religious teachers and well-rounded Muslims. You need the teachers, but you also need the followers. No political power or military takeover can stem the tide of radicalized populist Islam. Even if you do that, it's just a short-term measure. Madani or civilizing Islam is the only ideology to reunite Islam with humanity. Now, most Muslims don't care about that. They just care that if you are together, you have your pilgrimage, you have your ritual, then you go to heaven. They don't really care about being part of humanity. And that is why Donald Trump was very successful, because most of it is actually true in terms of populist Islam. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for giving the opportunity for sharing my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the insight from. And kita lanjutkan mendengarkan Profesor Dr. Nangkula Utabeta. Time is yours.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good night, everyone. First of all, I would like to address the lecture I like to address the credit to my professor. Prof. Tajuddin was my professor. So I think he has left the architecture and moved to the higher learning experience. And I believe what he shared today, actually, this is the first time I heard the lectures by him. So it's very inspiring. And I believe we can discuss further on that. So tonight, most of the slide and the thought that I'm going to present is actually basically coming from him, coming from Prof. Tajuddin, that I learned when I did my master's and my PhDs. And I'm going to talk about architectures. Yes, I'm thinking more smaller matters that what he already presented before. Yeah. What happened with my slide? It doesn't move. Okay, so the topics that I'm discussing after this is about mosque architectures, yeah, especially in the Nusantara. Nusantara means what some people call it Southeast Asia. Yeah. What I would like to start with the opening remarks, yeah, by Professor Tajuddin when he gave a remarks on my in our books, yeah, on our books called Mosque Spiritual Hub for Community Development. So when we talk about mosque architecture, masjid, yeah, masjid architectures, we talk about the forms. Yeah, most people, when we talk about mosque architecture, they talk about whether the mosque should have a domes, should have minarets, which should have a form like mukarnas, gate, and everything. Yeah, but some things that architects most of the time miss is that the understand of communities with socio-cultural context. yeah, the one that actually Prof. Tajudin has presented it before, which sometimes miss out by the architects when he designed a mosque, especially in these regions. Yeah. So today's I'm going to talk about when we think about mosque from the what we call as object-centered discourse. Yeah? We think mosque must have a dome, must have a minarets, must have a mukarnas. Yeah? Then we miss out what's actually the spiritual or the original message of the mosque itself. Yeah? I think that's the one that missing in our discourse on mosque architectures. So when we talk about architectures, sometimes we looking at Islam's as something that feudalistic, yeah, backwards, yeah, is only specific for Arabs and everything. Yeah. So this is the image. Yeah? This is the image that when people talk about mosque architectures, yeah, it should be like Arabs, Egyptian, Turkish, yeah, Middle East image. Yeah? Or maybe when we talk about Islamic architecture, also we talk about domes, yeah, the elements, yeah, the object centered that should be in the mosque that we understand today. Yeah? Something like in monumental scale, yeah, hierarchical scales. Yeah, that is the image. Yeah? So when I did my master's with Professor Tajudin before, we talk about some design like what Frank Lloyd Wright have did in the United States. Yeah, this kind of architectures. Yeah, during my master's, I will try. I'm trying to argue that this one is more Islamic, yeah, than the previous designs. Yeah, the one with domes and everything. Okay, so when we talk about Southeast Asia or Nusantaras, we have this kind of heritage. Yeah? Like this is one is Masjid Kampung Laut. Yeah, there was some mosques in Malacca. Yeah? In Indonesia, we have Masjid Demak and other masjid like in Banten, etc. Then currently in Malaysia, we have this kind of mosque, yeah, with what we call a Middle Eastern approach, yeah? Middle Eastern features in there. So let's talk about mosques, yeah, at the beginnings of the Islams. I think this is one of the very interesting appearance, yeah, by Hasanuddin Khan in one of his books. Yeah. But one thing that actually very more interesting, if you're looking at these drawings, yeah, when we're looking at this one, the previous one, we're looking at a mosque as a buildings. Yeah. That's why it's reconstructs from narrations and histories. Yeah? But when you look at the second buildings, yeah, the second sketch, yeah, it captured what happened, the interaction between the architectures and the peoples. Yeah, you see there's some markets there. There's some. Mosque used to be in a hospitals part of it. Yeah. And if you're looking at the original forms of the mosque itself, so I keep telling my students in my class, they say when you want to talk about the original form of mosque, this is the original form of mosque. So not the one with dome and the minarets. Yeah. Okay. Then when mosques come to different parts of the world, it captured and it basically make use of the local language, local architecture language to becomes different type of words, forms, yeah, like hypostyles, Turkish, yeah, Chinese typologies, yeah, Indian typology, Iranian typology. So this is a type of mosque that coming out or appear in the different parts of the world, yeah, showing that actually Islam is a religion who respect the local language, yeah. So they don't try to impose a certain language that everyone must follow. So when you see even in the modern mosque, yeah, this is a classification of modern mosque that I've done during my PhD studies, yeah. You see different type of language was appearing with a very interesting forms, yeah. So it's a rich language actually in architectures. So why actually mosque was captured as a domes, minarets, and Middle East image? Yeah? These are some certain factors that affected it. Unfortunately, I don't have time to explain one by one, but I would like to show you a bit of image. Yeah? This is an image of Rabbi Ibrahim bin Ezra in Egyptian revolutions, back in 90s. So if you see, if Ibrahim bin Ezra was coming up among us today, I believe he will become the imam in the mosque because of what his appearance. And if you see the clothes wear by the priests and sheikhs in Egypt, they wear the same, more or less the same clothes. You can differentiate which one is the priest, which one is the sheikh in Egypt. Let's see the inscription, I mean the ornamentation in the Quran, with the Coptic Bibles, in Egypt, it used the same language. Let's talk about architectures. When we talk about architecture, the same forms actually coming out. You see, this is the ornamentation of Abu Sirga Mosque, church in Cairo. It's also ornamentation of mosque. You can see lots of ornamentations, the same language. So this language is actually coming up from the cultures in Egypt, not coming from the Islam. So there will be some ulama was mentioning that the common language like domes, minaret should be used in mosque. Yes, it can be used in mosque, but as an architect, you might rethink about it, because sometimes it incurs lots of costs. A dome can occupy, can make use of 25%, up to 20% of your budget when you're designing a mosque. So what we are trying to come out, this is what Prof. Tajuddin's thought, is that to start think about mosque from the values of Islam, not from the object to objects comparisons. So we come out with different kind of reminders, like reminders of God, ibadah. So we talk about the value of Islam. So today I'm going to explain a bit about that, so that we can see what are the potential of it. So when we talk about reminder of God, we talk about how we remind to the creator of God, like natures, rivers, mountains. In the Quran also is clearly mentioned about that. So when we talk about that, like for example, like reminder of ibadah and perjuangan, Quran, salat and sedekah. So it will give an effect to the house of worship. Among them was a mosque, the design of the mosque. So we no longer looking at mosque as a sculptures of the house of God. Now mosque become a community centers, when actually we are trying to develop the communities. That is the original message of the mosque. When Prophet Muhammad and his companion build up a mosque, actually it's a center to develop the community. So in the architecture manners, it shouldn't look like a monument. A monument means a sculptures which was representing the forms of Islam. But now you become an active entities, active institutions to develop the communities. So we move forward, like the planning of fences in the mosque, so that not many people can go inside the mosque. So of course, in the design you can always work with the fence so that the dogs cannot enter the mosque, etc. Like the reminder of humility, where how actually Prophet Muhammad was unidentified. Who amongst you is Muhammad? Mean he didn't wear anything different compared to others. So in this kind of features, mosque shouldn't be looks like a monument, like something sculptures, like what we have in Indonesia and what we have in Malaysia later on. I mean, nowadays we can see a mosque was built with a very expensive features, Middle Eastern features, with abundance all ours Southeast Asian language of architectures. So, like a reminder, culture as mentioned by Professor Tajuddin, we have to respect other cultures, then works with it. Okay, let's move to this another, like sustainability, how we treat the prayer, the place of our salats, and then to become a different kind of space for us to develop further. accountabilities, where the leaders is actually is a representative of the peoples. They are not the one who actually dictate what will happen to the peoples. Yeah, these are some that I share with Prof. Ismail. Yeah, maybe later on, if any of the participant willing to study further, we can discuss. You can get the copies from him. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the mosque as a community centers. Yeah. So we redraw the things. Yeah, we put it in our books, and we would like to see the mosque from not just a buildings. Yeah. Some people believe that mosque is a part, it's just a buildings to cater praying, yeah, to cater prayers. So, but now we look at mosque as community centers. So one of my master students have done comparative studies of what are the spaces, what are the activities of the different kind of mosques. Yeah, like when you looking at this is our presentations, yeah, for the Petronas mosque exhibitions. Maybe Prof. Tajuddin remember, 2006, yeah, we present this one. How we looking at the mosque from different issues, yeah, and of course different language after that, different strategies. So some experiment has been done. I think this experiment by Prof. Tajuddin in UTMs. Yeah, you see when we introduce a new language of mosque to the students, yeah, outside these domes, minarets, that mosque must have a dome, the must have a minarets, must have a mukarnas, must have a Iwan gates. Now we change it into something different. Let's start from the value of Islam. Now the outcomes of it become a very different design. Yeah, so it more rich with culture and also with the local language. Just showing you few sample of the design from that. Yeah, like these all mosque designs. Yeah, it's not like supermarkets or other design. Yeah, something very modern. Some things that we never thought about that. Yeah, when we looking at mosque as object centered. Another samples of the studies. Yeah, I think this is one shared also by Prof. Tajuddin with me. Is what one of the UTM students. Yeah, when he introduced the design of mosque, Masjid Mesra Wanita. Yeah, so actually one of the very interesting features of that is that the architects or the students were introducing the idea of different part of the mosque as a women's space. Yeah, because women in our cultures have a lots of difficulties. Yeah, I mean when you want to go for wall climbing, you want to go for swimming, you want to go for gym, spa, and everything. So men have men have more freedoms than women. Yeah. So what she would like to introduce is that how about if certain part of the mosque was actually designed for women. Yeah. So that you can have these different kind of spaces that can be used by the Muslimah. Yeah. So a very interesting approach. Yeah. Now women have rights in some part of the mosque. Yeah, which is very needed in our current and contemporary communities. Yeah. Another example of proposed design of mosque. This is a mosque for youngsters. Yeah. When this is a mosque, yeah, not a club or any other thing. So what the student was trying to do is to propose a mosque which can be used by the young people. Yeah, young people feel they love to do that, do the activities there. Yeah, very interesting design. Yeah, with the different colors, schemes, and everything. Yeah. When we start the Waris Research Groups, we run out these projects called Free Mosque Designs. Yeah, we did a few type of design in Malaysia and Indonesia. Some proposed, some was built to explore the ideas of mosque in the context of Nusantara. Yeah, so this is some of the projects. So now we come out with a different approach in design. Yeah, number one, what we did is that we try to reduce the heat, yeah, inside the mosque. So some people ask why we take out the walls. Yeah? I mean, you're praying. Why are you hiding the praying for? So we take out. So we want to reduce the usage of air conditioner. Yeah. Now in one mosque in Malaysia, it can, like one of the mosques in one university use 120 portable aircon. Yeah, for the whole mosque. So when we take out some part of it, we introduce features like this is another experiment that we are doing with our aquaponic farmings. Yeah, you can make use of the waters into something else. Yeah, so we make it as a modular things. It's go ups. Yeah, it can be built in a very short period of times. We take out the domes, we take out the minarets. We're introducing a new kind of approach. Yeah, this is the first experiment that we're doing in Sabah. Yeah? So a few years back, yeah, we was discussed with after the Aceh earthquakes. Yeah, we proposing some proposals. Yeah, to reconstruct. We build up the prototypes to actually reconstruct. Yeah, some of the mosques. One thing very interesting is that most of the modern mosques, especially with domes and everything. Yeah, I remember one of my friends from New Zealand, yeah, one professor from New Zealand was mentioning, yeah, it was not very safe, yeah, to go with our current design of mosque when there's an earthquake in Indonesia. Yeah, so we do Ikatan Architect Indonesia in Aceh was doing a surveys. Yeah, these are the mosques that will totally collapse. Yeah, in some parts of the Aceh. Yeah, some of them is total damage. Yeah, so we are proposing a new prototypes. Yeah? This is a prototype. We still working on this one. But so we take out the minarets. Yeah? We change the minaret into structural. Yeah? Now Masjid Muslimin. This is one sample of it. So we now people know if we don't have this wall, people might know it's a mosque. It's like a different building. So we take out the dome, who cost us a lot of money. Now we have a very interesting designs in the sense that it was more natural friendly. Yeah, it's cheaper. It lots cheaper to construct. At the same time, easily to maintain, and it costs us very few rupiah just to maintain it. Yeah, just give you some sample of it. This is another project that we did in Bekasi. This is Pondok Quran. The original one, they wanted to make it as just one wakaf. Yeah? The wakaf means like one pondok to study Quran. So I think it's in a modern context when people want to talk about archeries and everything. So I think it's good to open it up. Yeah, this is our experiment with vegetables and everything. Yeah, so we now you can see when we talk about Islamic architectures from the perspective of values, it brings up a different kind of language. Yeah. Lastly, I think I would like to share with you our projects last time. I think last year's we are having an online designs studios, yeah, with the Eindhoven in Holland. Yeah, so we will not say commission. Yeah, we were asked by Muslim community in Eindhoven to come up with they call it cultural centers, because you cannot build a mosque in Europe. Yeah, no, you have a cultural center to conduct Jummah prayers. So these are the some of the design that our student coming up, yeah, in the context of Europe. Yeah, maybe it's very interesting approach on that. So now go back to the what is called an Islamic architectures. Yeah, so this is again a statement by Professor Tajuddin before. So when we talk about Islam architectures as a reminder of people, so we design it in the form that it abandons all the God's creature, yeah, like natures, trees, and everything. Yeah? But when we talk about Islamic reminder of God, of course we would like to propose the God's creatures among the human creatures. Yeah, yeah. It is individuals or it is humilities. Yeah, so there's a different things of it. So just to summarize the things when we talk about Islamic design and architectures, we talk about Quranic verse on the science of God, humilities, and also, as mentioned by Prof. Tajuddin before, was community interactions. So the mosque shouldn't be a monument where we are giving them a features, the mosque features there. Now it become an active institution who works with the communities. I think that's all for me. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for the explanation. Now we will hear the explanation from Dr. Abdul Misna